Hello, and welcome to Enjoy the Show, a podcast that is going to attempt to explain and discuss and mull over why movies are good.
Attempt. That's, I think, the key word here.
Yeah, sometimes movies aren't good. It happens. Hopefully not too much. It does happen a lot, but we try to.
Would you say more often than not? I think so.
Yeah, because there's a lot of movies. There's a lot of opportunity for bad movies to be made. It's like you just have so many.
Although movies cost so much to make, for the most part, that people are going to try and make them good if they can.
Yeah.
Unless they're specifically in the business of like B or C movies.
Yeah, but even then, you try to make a good B movie, you know, and then you can make some good money. Hey, I'm right there, and I'm John Reisinger, and I'm joined by.
I'm Ashley.
And I'm Adam Ellis.
Hey, so we're going to talk video game movies today. That's a genre. That's actually.
It's like
topic.
an entire genre.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's been around for a
It is
while.
sore topic a little bit for
Yeah.
a lot of people.
I mean, yeah.
Why is it a sore topic, Adam?
Because in general, video game movies are not good.
Well, and there's
very true.
there's a big stigma against them as well.
Well, it's because of people. I mean, it's because of the bad movies, right? It's because like you have so many like high expectations for the games that are made into movies, and you end up with things like Doom. Or
Yeah.
Whatever. I mean.
What's the worst example of a video
Worst
game movie?
example of video game movie that I've seen?
Yeah, is it Super Mario Brothers?
Because I actually don't think Super Mario Bros. Is the worst
like that.
out there, oddly enough.
That was the first one, right? The first
Yeah.
Was it really
It was the very first video game movie.
Yeah.
And they really just messed with it a lot.
That's what I liked about it. It was that Mario doesn't really have much of a story, especially the game that was based off. So like the way they went with it was nuts and stupid and didn't make any sense, but it was also like kind of creative.
With Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo.
Yeah.
Oh man, I
Leguizamo,
forgot about John Leguizamo.
Do you remember how they shoehorned in the jumping theme of Mario into the movie?
No, I don't.
Where they had these like mechanical bouncing shoes that allowed them to like almost like jetpack up distances. Like that's what they did. Like Mario jumps a lot. Let's do it with these weird mechanical shoes that he can't control very well.
Jet shoes.
What was your personal favorite?
My favorite video game movie? I don't know. I don't want to go back and rewatch it because I know it's bad, but I remember loving Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat for me too. It's
Same way.
Mortal Kombat's
it's
got a
horrible.
very
It's
soft,
a horrible movie.
But that's not the point. I thought that one of the things that I loved about Mortal Kombat is I felt like it owned its weirdness, and it just that it was kind of a stupid movie that was in the end all about like cheesy fights and cheesy characters, and it went for it, and I liked that.
Yeah.
I feel like there are a lot of video game movie adaptations that are like embarrassed to come from video games, and I felt like that one was just having fun with it.
At least it brought us a song that could like define an era of our generation.
I mean, let's just not talk about the sequels.
Annihilation, Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Wow, that was pretty bad.
That was something
Yeah.
for sure.
Just go Google the final CGI action scene at the end of
That came out in
Annihilation.
'97 though. Give him some credit.
Yeah, well, they shouldn't have done it. Is what they should. They should have been like, we don't have the technology to do this.
Wow.
We'll wait till James Cameron makes Avatar.
That's
and
how
then
I
we'll
mean.
attempt this.
That's how I feel about like World of Warcraft. Like they didn't really nail a lot of the CG elements of that. I think the orcs look good on their own, but
Orcs looked
juxtaposed
amazing.
against like the rest of things, like they still don't do all that well.
See, actually, the problem that I had with it was that the orcs did look very, very good, and there were a lot of things that looked really cool. I thought they did great with all the CG characters. Like the dwarves looked really cool.
Dwarves were pretty
The
good.
elves looked pretty cool. Whenever you for the 2 seconds
They
that
were
you
on
saw
screen
them.
for 2 seconds.
And so,
Dan, right.
and then they'd pan over to the humans, and it's like, oh, I'm watching the low-budget Shannara TV series.
Very cosplay-looking costumes.
Yeah, a lot of it looked, and some of it I was like, oh, that armor. I know I recognize that armor. So they were like, well, we have to put the armor in. But the dude in the armor looked so unimpressive.
Okay,
Compared
I'm
to
glad,
how
I feel
impressive
that way.
the
Like I
armor
feel like
looked.
the casting of that movie.
I would have almost liked to see just like a full CG movie, including CG people. I get why that's difficult because then you end up with the Uncanny Valley issue.
Well,
but they just looked so much less cool compared to everything else.
I think that movie could have greatly benefited from being entirely animated.
Like the cinematics that are in the game.
Visually, that to that level, that would be amazing. But I don't know.
And expensive.
Right, I don't know that time-wise that's possible.
I mean, a lot of that movie looked like a cutscene.
Right.
And right until a human waltzed it.
Yeah.
And so, like, it was there. Looked really, really good. I feel like just the attempt at blending too much real human into it. Like, humans are the least interesting part of any fantasy thing ever anyway. I mean, I stand by that, even Lord of the Rings. Aragorn is like an exception.
Excuse me.
For the most part, I was like, humans, let's go see what everyone else is doing.
No.
Lord of the Rings is a good example of like a World of Warcraft movie though, where they didn't have to CG dwarfs. They used like forced perspective shots and things like that.
They cast a 6'2" John Rhys Davies, and we're like, we're gonna make him tiny.
Right.
They did good.
I mean, and they had orcs in that movie and Uruk-hai, and they all looked amazing, and they're all practical. And except for like when you start going to the Hobbit, and Hobbit, most of them look bad.
Well, yeah.
And that's all because it's CGI. But I don't know, man. I don't know how I feel about World of Warcraft.
Warcraft, I thought, had half a good movie in it. And I thought half the good movie was the whole story with Duratan and his wife and the birth of Thrall.
Okay.
And even the stuff with the bad green orc, Gul'dan.
Yeah.
Like that whole thing, like that was interesting, and that was like for some reason, like talking about the humans being the worst part of the Warcraft movie, Duratan and his wife's interactions and the acting was better acting than the humans with Medivh and Khadgar and Lothar and all them. Yeah. Like it was just really cheesy writing. I don't even remember what that green halfling orc's name was.
She was the worst.
The worst part of the movie.
She was Gul'dan.
Gul'dan was the guy.
Not Gul'dan.
She was.
She wasn't the female version of the bad guy.
Oh, God, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know. You're like King has a crown, guy with scar, shitty stash sorcerer, probably bad guy sorcerer.
What was with the human casting in that movie? I feel like they got like such weird actors.
All the human casting was horrible.
Who was the main guy that did all the killing at the end?
And then the one that just like,
Lothar.
then he spent a lot of time just like looking sternly. That was
Yeah.
half his on-screen time was.
Yeah, but at least he sort of almost fit the part of looking kind of badass. Everyone else like looked not good.
Like the guy who played
Rin looked terrible.
King Has a Crown looked so basic. By the way, I have a very difficult time remembering any of their names.
It was
They're all very crazy names, and I'm not a World of Warcraft player. So I came at this movie as basically a fantasy movie. I played Warcraft 3 and Frozen Throne and that stuff. So I'm like, I recognize a little bit of this world and some of the races and all that. But having not played the game World of Warcraft, a lot of it felt.
I can't imagine how you could
follow. It
follow
felt very opaque.
Yeah, I can't.
Which is why they all have their own names.
I feel like I'm halfway to where you are. I think you're like a really big Warcraft lore guy, and I'm not. But even being like, I've played a lot of World of Warcraft, so seeing like some of these story bits thrown into the movie and like sort of getting the references and understanding the story they're trying to tell helped. But I think that like the story as a whole was such a truncated, small little thing. Like there's no time for good character development. I think the beginning of that movie bounced around to like 8 different locations in like a span of 5 minutes.
They showed Iron Forge for the span of 5 seconds.
Horrible, especially because like if you play those games, and this is not coming from the perspective of a movie watcher, but as a like person who played WoW, it's like going to Iron Forge for the first time was a huge experience. Like Iron Forge is like this huge, amazing gates that you go to after you go through the tutorial area, and then it's like this huge, awesome like dwarf area. And in the movie, it wasn't.
They made the movie too much like World of Warcraft, and they should have just made the movie much more just like Warcraft 1, focused on 1 to 2 storylines, and not try to introduce 12 characters, not try to do Suicide Squad. Do Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah. Do Kingsman.
I mean, you say that, but Guardians of the Galaxy was like the successful version of Suicide Squad, where they managed to introduce a lot of characters that people didn't know and make you care.
Guardians of the Galaxy, though, is the story of. There's a bunch of characters. You can have a bunch of characters in a movie, but you got to focus on who you want to develop and tell the story. And they were trying to focus and develop, like, we want to focus on showing this whole Medivh thing and him being corrupted by the Fel and that kind of thing. And then we want to introduce Khadgar and him kind of being maybe the next Guardian. And then we're going to have Lothar and his son and the mystery of his wife and that kind of thing. And then we're also going to have Duratan and his wife and their new. And then we're also going to have instead of like movies like Guardians or Kingsman or even Iron Man, it's like, hey, this is the Star-Lord movie. There's gonna be other characters, Gamora and Rocket and Groot, but we're gonna start off with Star-Lord as a kid. We're gonna show him as he grows up. We're gonna follow Star-Lord the whole way through. He's gonna make friends and we're gonna make interesting friends and we're gonna tell you like Drax's background a little bit, and we're gonna write these like well-rounded characters. But it's first and foremost the Star-Lord movie. It's first and foremost the Iron Man movie, that kind of thing. Just tell that story. Stop trying to like do the Batman v Superman game of let's set up a whole franchise with one goddamn film. Like Marvel did it. No, Marvel did it over the course of like 7 years with like 20 movies. You know, of course I'm being hyperbolic with that, but stop trying to make, you know, the Warcraft lore, which is, you know, 15 giant tomes of books into one movie so that you can like make this huge franchise launch off point. Just focus on them coming through the portal and maybe one group of the orcs and maybe if you want one group of the humans and write good stories of that.
Yeah, I would. So, as someone who's not super familiar with the Warcraft lore, when does this movie take place as compared to World of Warcraft?
This movie is like 4 or 5 games and expansions of the video game series brought into one, because even the first Warcraft movie is the story of the orcs coming through the dark portal and invading the world, but the whole thing of Gul'dan and the Fel and the whole thing of Medivh and his corruption, like that's like World of Warcraft added that in with expansions later on to fill in the blanks and stuff.
Oh.
Like that's not even like Warcraft 3. That's like going into World of Warcraft expansions.
Okay.
So they bit off, like Duncan Jones, who directed it. He just tried to do too much.
Director of Moon.
Yeah, like Moon. Like how you go from Moon to
Such a good movie.
yeah.
Well, I mean, I can see a lot of pressure with something like this to do a sweeping epic. It's a huge fantasy franchise. There are all these races to work with, and you don't want to leave them out. Although then the dwarves and elves got left out pretty much. But you want to explore as much as you can and tell us like all these cool stories. The difference being that this isn't Lord of the Rings, and Lord of the Rings gave it 3 movies.
and Lord of the
then-
Rings, also the first movie was let's just follow this one group of guys.
and then like expand out from there. So yeah, I can agree with the criticism when I try and look at like what was the overall plot of the movie. It was let's see, orcs come through gate,
Yep.
war starts.
Yeah.
That's like the total like overarching plot. Then you have all like a billion subplots that all sort of are fitting down within that. Like King has a crown and everything that he's doing, and Medivh and all getting corrupted, and this guy who's probably going to be the next Guardian is sort of coming into power. And so there are a lot of these little elements, but the overarching thing is war starts, and there's not a whole lot of conclusion to it.
There's not even a whole lot of war in it.
No,
Although I did like the fights. Like the first time the orcs in the like attack in the
Yeah,
forest.
when the orcs
and
fight
it was,
and everything, they look awesome.
mushing people.
I thought that like the story was going to focus on the Gul'dan thing because that seemed like the bigger evil in the movie, and then it was just like, no, we're gonna kill the king ourselves, and that's the end of the movie.
That made
and
so
from
much
a
sense.
from a overall like movie standpoint, the lack of any sort of closure with the villain was difficult. I mean, we got, I guess, a little bit with Medivh, but it felt like the real villain was Gul'dan, and like his people didn't turn against him. Nothing. It was just like, oh, he
Till the
killed
very end.
he killed everybody.
They didn't
Well,
turn
even
against
so,
him.
even then
like,
they didn't.
They
They
just
just
didn't kill
went.
a guy. Like
Yeah.
it's like yeah, okay, we'll let him go, and then he's gonna go away, and now we're gonna continue on with this fucking story apparently. But
Yeah,
So what like Warcraft's just one of like a bunch of different video game movies that have been out there that have been bad. Warcraft is one that
I don't
really
think it's-
attempted to be big budget and
I don't think it's. I don't want to call it bad. I think it
Yeah.
was an okay film.
Yeah. I
would say
think that-
Warcraft was an
I
okay
think there's a lot of missed potential there, but I don't think it's a bad movie.
was Assassin's Creed bad?
In my opinion, I
Why was
did
Ass-
not like that at all.
Why you didn't see Assassin's Creed?
I didn't. I actually.
Why didn't you see it?
I saw her tweet.
Oh.
I
That was
went,
like-
I
I
went
think
and
her tweet
saw it. I
something
was
like,
so mad.
Bernie forced me to go see the Assassin's Creed movie, and I've
he
never
didn't
been so
force me.
mad.
He didn't force me. We agreed to go. Like we agreed to go see it. He went with me, and I, like he agreed to go to the movie with me. I think I wanted to talk about it on the patch or something, and so I was like, let's go see this movie opening night. And I've never regretted a decision more. Well, that's not true. There are probably a couple decisions, but not a lot of them.
What made it so bad?
Okay, so the charm of Assassin's Creed is the different time periods and the history and getting to like run around and assassinate dudes in the past, right? You spend like maybe 15 minutes of the movie in the past, and they're all the high points.
He
The
jumps in
rest,
the past 3 times.
yeah,
Are you serious?
he only goes back in the past a couple times. The rest all takes place present day.
There's a ton
and
of present day.
Is in like this Templar bunker where they're using, I don't even
It's
know
opposite of the game.
what the hell they decided to do with the Animus, but now it's like a giant robo arm that'll like chuck you around so your body
think I saw
feels
that
like
in
it's
the
experiencing
trailer.
all the things. I get that they needed to make the Animus feel more active than just like lay down and put the electrodes in, although, you know.
I mean, you've seen
just
Avatar. That
saying
worked for Avatar.
worked-
And
exactly.
Matrix.
Avatar did work just fine.
Right.
But they were clearly trying to make it more
What?
visual,
I feel like
visually
they took way
impressive.
too much time to explain why the Animus works and not like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, they spent a lot of time getting like lost in the weeds, and it all felt like very self-important and super serious. Also, I get the feeling that they went to every equipment rental place in Los Angeles or wherever they filmed and said, "Give me every smoke machine you have." And then they turned them all to max because that entire movie is smoke.
1400 Spain was just on fire all the time. I
It
don't know
was
if you remember
constantly
that
on fire.
from the history books.
So-
but I remember they're just like, yes, the city was, the country was in just a constant state of immolation. And so it's
But
just.
not even that, like present day Templar area.
They didn't
like,
have
if you're
good
not in a
ventilation
prison cell,
in,
you're in the smoke.
What's the name of the company that does the Animus? Abstergo.
Abstergo.
They didn't have
So-
good ventilation.
It just, yeah, and it's like they did that to add atmosphere and also probably to make it so that you can't see that they didn't spend money on effects or sets or whatever because
Or the fact that they made Michael Fassbender Spanish.
they blew their
Oh, did
entire
they?
budget on just
Oh, he plays
Michael
him.
Fassbender.
He plays him in ancient Spain, and he's just like a little tanner, longer hair, some tattoos on his face to look like an assassin. And yeah, it's
Great.
Spanish Fassbender.
I'm
But-
glad I skipped that one.
That one felt like they were. That's another one that I feel like was embarrassed to admit that it came from a video game, and so they spent all this time trying to like build this crazy, like serious, dark plot going on. And I'm like, you know what? All anyone really wants from Assassin's Creed is to go assassinate people.
Yeah, he didn't do that very much,
Not really. He spent a lot of time like.
or at all.
He spent a lot of time being conflicted.
Yeah, I mean, they focused on the whole Apple of Eden thing a lot. Like that was the
So
driving force. So much that it was never about him exploring. There was no exploring of the past at all. It was like
There was like a chase scene, and that was really sweet, even though a horse ended up on a roof for no reason
yeah, there
whatsoever.
was a horse on the roof.
Horse on the roof. That was like the thing. So there's the assassins, him and his lady friend assassin. They're running through. They're doing all their cool parkour and jumping around. And there's this dude on horseback chasing them. And he keeps catching up. And they're doing all these like crazy things to get away. And then for some reason, like the dude caught up to him when he was on his horse on a roof of a building. Because, I don't know, he knew that they were going to come that way and decided he wanted to have a good look at them as they wandered past.
I think something that Assassin's Creed did that a lot of video game movies don't accomplish very well, other than the whole story issue, is, I mean, can you name a video game movie where it had a character that you genuinely cared for, connected with, and really wanted to see develop? Like that, where you're like, this is an interesting character. I like this. Like, Fassbender, whatever the character's name in Assassin's Creed, I can't remember his name.
Auditory?
Yeah, no, the guy himself.
Oh, I don't remember.
I didn't care about him. I didn't. At any point did they ever get me to want to follow him. And same with Warcraft, like other than Duratan, one of the
I
CGI
think you're
orcs.
totally right on Duratan. I think
Duratan, like you
He was
wanted to know
great.
his story.
I wish the movie had spent a lot more time with him.
But I mean, from Mario to Mortal Kombat to Street Fighter, all the way up through to.
I quite liked Lara Croft.
Okay, I will say yes.
I thought she was a pretty likable
She was
character.
charismatic. The Tomb Raider movies, I haven't gone back and rewatched. I couldn't actually be able to tell you, like, were these even
I
decent
think I
at all?
rewatched the first one recently, and it was all right.
I mean, they're reasonably cheesy action flicks, but that's also true to the game.
Her character, was a believable and likable, not just likable, it's not actually just like character, but you should be just interested in the character, which then helps drive the movie forward. So then the movie can still be enjoyable and you want to actually watch the movie,
The
not
trick-
just wait for action sequences.
The trick with a lot of video game movies is that a lot of times with video games, the protagonists, like the actual character that you play, are sometimes the least interesting characters in the game because they don't want to get they don't want too much of the character protagonist personality to get in the way of your experience.
What game would be an example of that?
Halo.
You think
Yeah,
Master
I mean,
Chief
like-
is the least interesting character?
Well,
I'm saying
Chief
well,
until
okay.
recently didn't say anything.
I mean, he's not. He's like this.
They developed
He's
him
like
more.
he's like a window. Like for a long
Gordon
time,
Freeman.
he started
Like-
as you.
Yeah.
A window for you to see the world through, and for you to experience
Yeah.
the game through.
Right. There's a lot of approaches to games where you have a silent or quiet protagonist, so that you can fill their shoes.
Yeah.
Like even Breath of the Wild. Like
Yeah.
you meet all these cool characters, and Link doesn't fucking talk. But you know,
Well, we were discussing the video game movie franchise, and we were saying that, yeah, a lot of early games weren't story laden, and so they kind of had to create something, especially out of like fighting games, like Mortal Kombat and Street
Fighter.
and Tekken and Dead or Alive and that kind of thing. And so they have to create kind of a story around it. Even Mario, early Mario didn't have much of a story, had kind of a setting, but not really a story. But Assassin's Creed and Warcraft are these movies that are now trying to tap into these video games that are just huge stories, like tons of story. I mean, Uncharted, it has huge story. Halo now has huge story and that kind of thing. So with these movies now grabbing, from these franchises that actually have a lot of story, they're still not adapting them very well. I think the movie world has proven we can adapt things pretty well, especially with the comic book adaptation. There's a lot of great comic adaptations.
well, there's a real big difference between comics and games.
Okay.
The main one being interactivity. Like the point of a game is that you play it. So if you look at like what video games would make good movies, like you look at what the video game has, and it's generally two things. Or a few things. It's gameplay first and foremost, because you play the game the whole time, so you want it to feel good when you play it. That stuff can't translate to a movie generally, because you're not playing a movie. I will say that there are exceptions to this with certain movies that like are so visceral that you feel like it could be a game.
Like what?
Like John Wick.
Yeah.
That game, I'm not playing it, but I feel like I could be, because
That's the FPS movie that we need.
right.
Hardcore Henry.
Hardcore was literally through the
It
perspective.
was actually an FP first-person puncher.
So was some Doom.
Yeah.
So was some of Doom.
Doom was?
Yeah,
Doom was
yeah.
through
There was that one
Terrible.
first-person segment in Doom.
Yeah.
There was
They were like, we put a camera on the stupid gun. It looked
just
terrible.
for a little bit.
Wow.
But there's
They're like, it'll be a great homage, and everyone said, please don't.
Yeah.
There's gameplay and then there's story of games and then the characters within those stories. And I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of times the movies are just trying to like say like, look, we acknowledged everything that's in this game. See? But they don't actually like take time to like develop. Like if you look at Uncharted would make a great movie.
Yeah.
Because it's not about the gameplay really. Yes, it's about the jumping and the shooting, but like mostly it's about those characters.
Yeah.
And if a movie could take that sort of stuff and do good character development with it and show good set pieces, which is another thing video games do well, then there you go. Like I think Halo could make a great movie.
Yeah.
Master Chief doesn't necessarily have to be interesting, but I think that you can make shooting interesting, you can make fighting aliens interesting, and especially with like good, like not effects, but like good production design.
I just think that one of the things that the comic book movies have done really well is like they've leaned into it. They are comic book movies, and they are happy, like they're more than happy to celebrate that they're, sometimes cheesy and sometimes campy. At least the comic book movies that have done well. I think they're.
The comic book movies have tried to be cheesy. I
Well,
think they've
it's-
actually tried.
they-
I think actually I would argue that comic book movies have the successful ones. Well, a lot of them are successful.
I mean,
even though-
I would argue that the premise of something like Guardians of the Galaxy is a little bit cheesy. You've got
that's
you've got
science fiction.
you've got your human dude, you've got your talking raccoon, your sentient tree, you've got your green lady, and you're all fighting on a spaceship.
But they don't cheese
and-
it though with the writing. Like Rocket is not cheese. Like,
No,
like,
but they like embrace their source material and the fact that it doesn't need to be some super serious Assassin's Creed
Warcraft embraced its
moody
source material.
bullshit.
Warcraft embraced
It did,
its
and I
source
thought that
material
was
a lot.
I thought that's one of the things that it did quite well.
Yeah.
If anything, it was trying to show us too much of itself all at once.
Yeah.
But I thought that it embracing what it was one of the strong points of the Warcraft movie.
I think a great example of a movie that could go of a movie that took its source material and went all out with it, but accomplished it with just quality from start to end was Scott Pilgrim. Scott Pilgrim is a movie that I mean, it's very, very Zack Snyder-esque, took from the pages, but then turned it into this world that with a character that you loved and really wanted to see how his story ended, as well as backup characters that added to the story and were also interesting.
And they're all kind of like over the top, and they're fun.
Yeah.
And it's high energy. And
Visually
it's
entertaining, great setting, great music. I mean, just all across the board. So I think movies exist that show this could be done. Like, you can actually take insane source material and even make it more insane. The movie's even more insane than the book itself because of how much they could do more with the visuals. But I think it comes down to the focus of the story and the characters themselves that video game movies just haven't. Like Assassin's Creed, you didn't care at all about what was happening.
Nope, not even a little bit.
Warcraft couldn't care at all about the humans. And that's like half the movie, if not more than half the movie.
Yeah, I just want to be like, okay, can you wrap up this scene and get back to the orcs, please?
Yeah.
Did you guys remember the Silent Hill movie?
I didn't see the Silent Hill movie.
I felt like that movie was close to the source material, but it didn't feel like a video game movie. It just kind of felt like an obscure horror movie, if that makes sense.
Have you watched the Resident Evil movies?
Yes.
Are those
some of them?
I fell off the Resident Evil movies
There's
after
too many.
2 or 3. I feel like the first Resident Evil movie felt like a game adaptation.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that movie a great deal. I wouldn't have called it a loyal adaptation by any means. I was like, they took Umbrella and they took zombies and
they made it
they
really
like
actiony.
and then did their own thing with it. But I as a movie, I enjoyed it. It was a zombie action movie, and that was fine. After that, I don't feel like they're adaptations anymore.
No.
They just they took it and they spun off their own world.
It's kind of like the Walking Dead TV series to the comic book at this point. It's just
Yeah.
like, they're kind of making their own thing now. It is like referencing the source material, but it's not at all the source material.
Yeah.
Actually, it's so funny. I looked it up, and from what I could find, and someone might be able to prove me wrong if they find a different one, answer this, but the highest rated video game adaptation movie is Final Fantasy Spirits Within.
That's what I looked up too.
Which is fascinating because
it's not
it was
based on.
Do you know what the second highest rated one is?
What?
Angry Birds the movie.
Oh, jeez.
No.
Yeah. That's how low the bar is set.
Those are the two best.
That's disappointing.
I actually liked the story of Final Fantasy Spirits Within, but I know I'm in the minority, and I wouldn't argue that this should be a movie people should like.
I also wouldn't classify it as a video game movie remotely. It was done.
Did it have
by,
anything to do with the video games?
No, it was done by a video game company.
Yeah.
It had an entirely independent story.
Yeah.
It looked like a 2-hour-long Final Fantasy cutscene, which was kind of what they were going for there. I think they were showcasing tech more than anything. But it had very, nothing to do with any of the games that they had going. It was just sort of its own thing. So I don't count that as an adaptation. It was just a movie made by.
It was like branding acquisition is what it was.
Yeah, pretty much.
Hey, so just take a quick break from talking about all those video game movie things. I want to tell you a little something about food. Food's important in video games. That's a good segue. Not all ingredients are created equal. Fresh, high quality ingredients make a real difference. So it's important to know where your food comes from. For less than $10 per person per meal, there's this great company called Blue Apron, and they deliver seasonal recipes in these pre-portioned little ingredient packages and bowls, and they take them straight to your home, give them to you, and they give you instructions on how to make the food from the beginning. You guys can choose from a ton of different recipes every week. You can let their culinary team surprise you. You can pick your own recipes. They're not repeated within a year, so they have a ton to choose from. So you won't get bored of the same cafeteria style meal that you got in school all the time. Some good ones coming up is spinach and fresh mozzarella pizza. Parmesan crusted chicken and sweet and sour salmon with fried rice. I have made that. That is good. Blue Apron's freshness guarantee, a promise that every ingredient in your delivery arrives ready to cook, or if there's something comes wrong, they'll make it right. You just gotta let them know. No problems. You can customize recipes based on your preferences or any allergies or dietary restrictions you might have. You can choose from a bunch of delivery options, whatever fits your needs. You can take a break if you want. There's no commitment. So if you go on vacation or you're going to be gone or something like that, you can say, hey, don't send me food this week, and they take a break, and then you can start up again. You can check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals free. That's just a whole day of free food by just going to blueapron.com/enjoy. It's really just go get some free food. You're gonna like how good it feels and tastes to create really good home cooked meals with Blue Apron. I promise you, I have done this myself. I'm a big advocate of where your food comes from and how you make it. It's a great service that does this. That's blueapron.com/enjoy. Get some free food. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. Thanks again, Blue Apron. And now back to the video game movie talking. Do you have any hope for the video game film industry, considering it's been trying for, I mean, how long ago did Mario Brothers come out? 30
30 years.
1983 was
Yikes.
Super Mario Brothers?
No, maybe it was
No,
93.
because I was born in 84 and it came out after I was born.
87?
I don't think I was 3 years old when I
88?
saw it, because I think I saw it in
93?
theaters. I think it was, let's look it up.
think
But
it's
it's still 20 plus years, almost 30 years.
I don't think there's been a good one yet, but
No, there hasn't.
I think it can be done. I think there have been a couple that came close to the mark. Like I said, I enjoyed that Warcraft leaned into its origins and did a lot with it. It just needed more focus. I enjoyed it for what it was. Again, not a super
93.
crazy loyal adaptation, but for what it was, I thought the Hitman movie was watchable.
I didn't see the first one. I saw the second one.
I'm also, though,
second one
admittedly-
I didn't like.
total slut for Timothy Olyphant. So
Oh, yeah, I like
I'll
him
give
too. He's great.
I'll give him all kinds of passes.
I like him a lot. He's the worst casting of Agent 47 ever.
Oh yeah, I was.
He doesn't look anything like an Agent 47.
Even at the
should.
time, I was
so
like,
small.
that's a weird
Right.
choice, but I like him, so I'll
He's
like
a
I'll
good
have
actor, but
give him a go.
Yeah. It's a little, it's painful, like, because there are so many movies that feel like a video game movie, like I said, John Wick, but
Yeah.
there are also movies that have made good video games. Like, it seems like it's just that other way around makes it like there's a hard translation there. Like Wolverine wasn't like the best video game, but it was a good video game.
Yeah, that was one of the only Marvel video games that people actually even talk about.
There was Chronicles of Riddick made an amazing
very good game.
Did it?
It was I think Escape from Butcher Bay was the good one. And
Mad Max made a good video game.
There was Dark Athena. Made an okay video game, but
Yeah.
but it didn't make like it wasn't. It was people liked playing it. Like it wasn't like as hated as video game movies are.
Yeah.
I don't know what would make a good movie out of a video game. Like I don't know what they're missing. I think it's too much focus on trying to be faithful to the source material to a fault. And like just showing all the stuff, like Warcraft felt like they were just like, look, we acknowledged all the things in the game, but the story didn't matter. I didn't care about the characters for the most part. I think those are what matters, like good set pieces, good story, and good characters in the movie.
I mean, in the end, in order to make a good video game movie, you have to make a good movie.
Yep.
And it has, so there are a lot of things that you have to take into account there, which is focus.
Yeah.
You have to, like, unlike a video game where you have, 15, 20, 100 hours to be able to tell a story, and so you have a lot of time to get through development. With a movie, you've got 2 hours, tops. You have to introduce people, your characters, you have to get people to like them, you have to drive those characters through all their conflicts,
Well,
and you have to have a resolution.
It's kind of like what like a director and the writing team for Iron Man, like Kenneth Branagh, who directed it. Iron Man, there's a lot of comics. There's a lot. It's been around for a long time. So it's like, let's just tell just this story of Iron Man. We're just going to tell the origin of him. We're not going to introduce a million villains or a bunch of his extra characters. It's just going to be Tony Stark. We'll have Pepper. We'll have Happy in there a little bit. And that's about it. That's all the thing. And same thing with like Thor. Thor, there's a huge cast of a pantheon of gods and everything like that. And they introduced a few, but it was mostly just like Thor and Natalie Portman. Like that's what the story was for the most part. And so they do that, and then you can create these big old franchise films where you introduce a bunch of characters and they're all together, but just focus, Like Warcraft, like maybe just have told in the first movie like the story of the humans, if you really wanted to, and then at the very end show that there's maybe another side of the story. It's like, oh, like maybe the orcs have their own story, but don't like tell 12 stories. I mean, even with the Hitman movies, at least they just focused on. Agent 47 just focused on him and that one girl throughout the whole movie, and that was it.
And I felt like I had spent enough time with them to empathize and to want them to win.
Yeah.
And with this one, I was like, well, I mean, I don't want the orcs to win because that guy's kind of an asshole, but like I don't care much about the humans, and all the other races can fuck right off because they just decided to sit the whole thing out, even though their world was in jeopardy for some reason.
Yeah.
And so I felt like the only person I really, really cared about was Deuteronomy.
Which one's Deuteronomy?
The orc thing that I liked.
Duratan.
Duratan.
Yeah.
I called him Demeter for a while, but I was like, I don't think he's a Grecian lady.
What game would make a good movie?
Well, I think at some point everyone keeps looking at Zelda.
Everyone looks at Zelda. A lot of people looking at Uncharted, and Uncharted has like, if you look at Uncharted with the formula of the the adventure movie, like what
The Mummy.
similar to what Tomb Raider did, what the Mummy's done, Indiana Jones.
Indiana
Like
Jones.
it's got some very strong templates to follow. You focus on Nathan Drake.
But you
And
gotta-
it's like as long as you don't get too off in the weeds with a billion supporting characters, which Uncharted doesn't really do as a game, so I
Good.
feel like it's got a pretty solid basis there.
Make him likable though, because Fassbender
They
was
already
focused.
made the Uncharted movie. It's called National Treasure.
It's called National. So you're saying if they make the Uncharted movie, they should just get Nick Cage?
I mean, honestly, it should be Nathan Fillion, but I thought they weren't. I thought they'd like started casting the movie and it wasn't Nathan Fillion.
I feel like that movie's been in some sort of weird development hell for a very long time, and no one has any idea what's going on with it. But of the franchises out, I think that one's got a lot of promise. I would also say, honestly, Naughty Dog's got a pretty good track record, because I also think that The Last of Us would make a great film.
This reminded me of
Because that's another one
Yeah.
where the game is quite focused in
They
on a
basically-
very small cast.
The Last of Us is a movie.
Yeah.
I'd watch the shit out of that.
Yeah. I mean, there's already movies, there's already zombie movies that have like basically done The Last of Us, but not the whole Last of Us story. But like, I mean, The Road with Viggo Mortensen, that's the story of the father and the daughter in the kind of apocalypse. And even recently, I just watched The Girl with All the Gifts, which is a new zombie film, but it's very fungal-based zombie thing, and has very much the same kind of aesthetic because they are in like London, overgrown London, and that kind of thing. I mean, even I Am Legend is a little bit like.
Don't call that a good movie.
I Am Legend's a good movie.
It's not
Such a bummer
It's
of
not
a
a.
fucking
It's a
bad
bummer because the
movie, but
dog
it's-
gets totally fucked over, and then he does too. It's a good movie up until he meets the girl and the kid at the very end.
Sure.
It had some issues. I actually quite liked the original ending
The grenade one?
Of I Am Legend?
of I Am Legend. Yeah.
What's the original ending?
Well, of the source material, like he learns that he's the bad guy.
That he's the one who made the.
He's the monster. He's the legend.
Wait, explain that to me.
So the idea of like the source material in that is that he's going through this whole thing, and he's killing these monster dudes, and then at the end he figures out that he's the monster.
Right. How is he
He's
the
like
monster?
he's the scary legend that the other people tell of.
Because all of these human vampire zombie things
Yeah.
have become these human vampire zombie things, and they're now the major population. They're not there to just eat him.
They've
He's there
developed
to
like a
hunt them.
lifestyle and stuff, and he's just hunting them.
That's a weird ending.
It is,
it's
but it's a very cool twist. Obviously, it doesn't test very well.
Yeah.
But I quite like the way the source material handled that ending, as opposed to what the movie ended up doing.
I think Last of Us will require very good casting, though, especially with the kid casting. Kid casting is so important, and a good movie that has that,
Yeah,
the girl with
you'll
all the
be
gifts.
Ellen
and
Page.
Logan. Logan did a great job with it.
What, like a CGI young Ellen Page or something?
Oh, boy.
When that game originally, when they originally announced Last of Us, they had the character model looked exactly like Ellen Page,
Yeah.
to the point where she had to be like, "Hey, you're using my likeness," and they had to change it.
That's
Oh, did they
true,
change
but
it?
Yeah.
they did make some tweaks, but they also ended up publishing a picture of their actress, Ashley Johnson,
Who looks very much like
who
the
like they
character.
posted the picture of her when she was young that they were basically using as a model, and it looked exactly like the model.
I think there are two games that make good movies. Halo, because I think that
But the problem, my worry with Halo is that they're going to try to they're going to do that thing where they focus on too much, and they're going to like build out this crazy, huge world, and we'll spend like 5 minutes with any one character, and we just won't spend, we won't be enough into it.
my thought is that origin stories make a good start to franchise, and I think Halo, if it came out, would be a franchise. And if you've ever read Fall of Reach, it's such a well done origin story for John, like where he goes from being like a normal kid to like he becomes way stronger than his classmates, and he accidentally like kills one of them, or not kills one, like very seriously injures one of them, and like it's so fascinating to see how he becomes Master Chief. Like it looks at him from a perspective that's not just like, oh, he was dropped in this world, now he's a super guy, and then I think the aliens are all very interesting, and I think that Cortana could be a good voice of that movie because he doesn't talk much. I don't know, man. I think that could make a really cool movie, and I think like visually, like all that stuff is very obtainable to do like practically for the aliens or for the grunts, and maybe not. They're a little bit.
We're liking the short series Forward Until Dawn.
Yeah, I thought.
Yeah, Forward Until Dawn is one of the better. I mean, if you wanted to count that as an adaptation, it's
Probably one of the best
it's
video
the
game
best.
adaptations out there.
Ratchet and Clank's pretty good too. Even though
Ratchet
it
and Clank was
basically-
just the cutscenes.
It was good though. I liked it.
Yeah, wasn't that literally just?
It was that with like a little bit more added on. Because I remember watching it and being like, this is just the game, and I went and played the game. I was like, this is the game.
It really is.
weird of a release.
It is
that's
weird.
That's what it felt like. It felt like, are you releasing the cutscenes as a film?
Yeah.
I think one that would make a good movie, if you didn't already play the game, is Bioshock, because I think that twist at the end is like so fantastic.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And that is a world where you don't necessarily have to go through the 20 hours of gameplay. Like if you're playing Crashlands,
Just make it an
you go to
escape
the
story.
you go into Rapture, and it's just like a beautiful underwater world.
Yeah.
And you go through the story of like figuring out what's going on, and then you realize you're being controlled, and like that would make a really good movie. And I don't think that would be too hard to do in terms of like nailing it. But again, it seems like a lot of these movies are low-hanging fruit, but they don't do well.
Well, there's so many of them that have already, like, the rights have been optioned. Like a theoretical Bioshock movie was floating around years ago. I think they were talking about Gore Verbinski doing it, and then just nothing happens with them. And it, I agree that one is also, it takes place in a very specific location, so you would get to know the location, which for Bioshock is one of the main characters, is Rapture.
Yep.
And you have plenty of time to spend there. Small cast, you don't have a lot of options.
Yeah.
You meet a couple people along the way, like survivors and that, but it's for the most part about one specific person's story and trying to, get out and oppose one, specific antagonist. And I think all that has the elements for a nice controlled scope of story.
Yeah. I mean, I think that would make a really good movie. But
For me, the most confusing thing about the whole video game franchise is that at this point, because of how long it's been around, they've tried every angle, I think, at this point that anybody could offer up of either being very close to source material or trying to make a movie that's not for the video gamers and it's for the general public, or really good casting, or really great visuals. And they've tried all those, and they have yet to make just an all-around great movie. So I don't know. So I'm just confused at this point.
I think they're just striking out because there are so many movies that have been made that like could have been video games. Like look at Judge Dredd. Like that is literally like you're going like take one tower. It's a video game based on a tower.
Level.
You're going up levels and killing shit with a cool gun.
Yeah.
Like that to me could be that could have been a video game easily before a movie. The Matrix. I mean that's a really good movie, but like as a video game, like the game is bad, but like
Played the game. I still have the
I mean,
disc.
the idea of that as a game is totally feasible.
Yeah.
Well, one of the real concerns with video game movie adaptations also, though, seems to be that a lot of them are being made by people who don't seem to have any idea what made the games cool. They might, like, someone told them, and they're like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. It made how many millions? Ooh, that's a lot of millions.
I would say Warcraft was like someone who was made by someone who knew what made the video game.
No.
cool.
Because
No,
what
they
makes a
had
video game
Chris
cool?
Metz in there.
I guess it was, yeah, Warcraft was the giant, like,
Warcraft to me was you're dropped in the biggest fucking world you've ever seen in a video game, and there's tons of loot, and you're meeting people, and like that, like especially World of Warcraft. Like I don't know how why you try to adapt a giant open world game into a movie where I skipped almost all the quest text because it was just about the experience of living in that world. It wasn't about the story.
Warcraft 3 was the first time it was about the story for me.
Right.
And maybe they should just done that. Maybe they should just jumped into the world, not into the origins of the world, but just jumped in and tell the story of Arthas.
I was just about to say
one
that.
story.
If they were going to tell one story from the Warcraft universe, it should have been the origin of Arthas. Maybe even the fall of Arthas. But Arthas is the coolest fucking villain that's ever been made in a video game.
They probably just went too far back into the whole beginning of the Warcraft world. We're going to tell everything about how everybody got their roles that they're in now. Instead, just be like, hey, let's just focus on what happened with this prince.
Yeah, the coolest fucking.
And when he finds this sword, and what happens when this sword does things. Like, what if that had just been the movie?
Yeah.
You know? But instead, they needed the movie to be a big franchise thing. They needed to be the big movie to set up Thrall and set up Khadgar and all them. And
Well, with the idea then being, I mean, the Warcraft movie ends at a point where you expect, like, coming in summer 2019, Warcraft 2. The, blah, 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 blah. Like, it feels like they were setting up the beginning of at least a trilogy.
Warcraft 2, the Battle of Five Armies.
It feels like the start of something without the promise of anything actually coming after
I
it.
don't like that.
I get it, sort of, because they're like,
I get it
I don't
from
know,
a money's perspective. I don't get it from a good movie perspective.
Go play the game. So yeah, I don't think that was
It's like the end of
right choice
Fantastic
for a movie.
Beasts. Like the reveal at the end of Fantastic
Yeah.
Beasts with like, hey, there's more. Like we know that. Stop. You know,
Yeah.
like that's the thing that again, I'm gonna use Marvel, the MCU as a good example. Is that the only thing they did was little post-credit scenes. The movie's ended. Like
I would say.
Iron Man-
I would say after the first couple stingers of Marvel movies, the stingers became a part of the movies because they were so well known. Like everyone knew to stay around. Like
Right.
This gave hints.
That's true, but if you didn't stay for the stinger, you still saw a complete movie.
yeah.
Do you feel like you didn't see a complete movie without the bits?
Well, like
even with the bits at the end of the Fantastic Beasts, like what?
It was most so like, I don't mean to be spoilers, but at this point I think most people have seen it. But it's the whole Johnny Depp reveal at the very end, where it was like, okay, well, yeah, we get like you just revealed a huge actor in the last 5 seconds of the movie, which means that all you're doing is just setting up him in the next movie. That was the only reason you did that.
But it does nothing to service the current movie.
Yeah. It took me out of the movie so much. I was like, all right, you just did a franchise setup, and you just did it right there in the middle of the last scene of your movie. Stop it. Let the movie
I see what you're
end.
saying. I guess if that was like a post-credit stinger where he's like sitting in a cell and you see him transform
Right.
there. Yeah, it'd be
Let the movie have a black endpoint, and then do your little post-credit scenes. That's what post-credit scenes are for. Post-credit scenes are the to be continued.
Yeah, they're like the end coming up next.
Yeah.
So I think it's possible. I think they need to pick the right properties. I think they need to focus. I think they need to create a focus story where you care about like one or two specific characters.
Well, you got
take them through their narrative, explore the world a little bit.
next one we got coming up is Tomb Raider, and I really hope they do that. I really hope they just focus on her.
I mean, I love the actress Alicia Vikander. I loved her in Man from U.N.C.L.E. She was great in Ex Machina.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of promise there. It, again, similar to what they did with the movies before, is like it is at least focused on a character and her adventures through the world and doing crazy, dangerous stuff.
Introduce us to her, make us like her, make us be drawn to the Tomb Raider character.
Was she the robot in Ex
She
Machina?
was a robot. Yeah. So, and she's really great and like very charming.
She is.
And I think that she has a lot to offer, that character. Just take us on an adventure with her, and I will probably be pretty happy about that.
Make it like Castaway style, where it's like, let's just hang out with her for like a big chunk of the movie. Don't even introduce other characters. Like, let us like.
If you look at Lara Croft, like that's what those games are about, or not Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, like the new ones. I mean, that's she's like figuring out how to survive. She's going from this frail little lady to like becoming this badass by going through all these experiences. I don't know, man. That could be a cool movie. Could be.
So you still have
I
hope?
still-
I always
still
want
have
I want
hope.
all movies to be good.
Yeah.
I mean,
next-
I wanted the Warcraft movie to be good because I love Warcraft.
Yeah.
But I mean, they just got to throw a lot at the wall and see what sticks after 25 years or whatever it is.
1993. So yeah,
24 years.
24 years of video game movies. 24 years.
I want to see Edgar Wright do an adaptation.
I want Edgar Wright to do any
Adaptations
genre.
of absolutely everything.
Yeah,
anyway.
I don't know. I was so sad that he got taken away from Marvel, but yeah, let Edgar Wright just do adaptations of everything.
So I still have hope. I think they can be done well. I think that there have been some improvements made. We're seeing ones that are more watchable now. I just think they need to make the right choices about scope and scale and telling a good story.
Yeah, almost like that's what movies should be about.
Weird, right?
Almost like they should just take what makes a good movie and adapt it to video games. That's it. Well, thank you. That was kind of fun.
Kind of fun.
That was kind of fun. Did you have kind of fun?
I had kind of fun.
You had
I had
kind of fun.
kind of
Okay,
fun.
good. Well, thank you for joining us. That's been Enjoy the Show. If you guys like this and show us with like some views and stuff like that, and nice little comments, stuff like that, we might do more of these. We'll see.
Let us know.
Maybe we'll do more.
This is the first episode that's ever been on the No channel on YouTube, and there are other episodes you can see. We'll link them in the end card, so you can see some of them. Yeah, we'll do our own post-credit scene. You know, so you can see some of the previous episodes about like monsters and like all kinds of like
Scary B movies.
Scary B movies and that sort of thing. You can check those out. But if you like this, please let us know.
Yep.
You know, like the video, leave a comment letting us know what you like, what you'd like to see like adapted or tweaked or anything like that. If you want to see more of it, and so on.
All right. Bye.
Love you.